Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second installment of Dear Esther. This is more than likely the final installment, given that we started with 2 chapters and we have 2 chapters remaining, but that does remain to be seen. Depends on how much is left in the remaining 2 chapters. In the first part, we came through chapter 1 and 2, so we landed on the lonely yet picturesque island, and we were treated to some voiceovers from what I believe is the protagonist of the game, the character who you are walking around as, giving us some cryptic insight into what is possibly going on. As I say, it's cryptic, so it's not easy to interpret exactly what is going on. So there seems to be some relation to the player character, this island, and a woman by the name of Esther, and something to do with a possible car crash on a motorway somewhere near Bristol in England. So the best thing we can do is just dive right in. So we're just going to jump straight into the caves, which is where we ended up the last time.
Donnelly did not pass through the caves. From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is, has gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks.
So we find ourselves now underground, under the island, in the caves, with no flashlight. Yet there does seem to be more than enough bioluminescent material around to enable us to see pretty much everything that's going on. So we'll continue forward and try and figure out what the story is. I think it's worth pointing out that this third chapter, I actually had to play through the first 2 because when I was playing the last time for the first video, it didn't actually save my progress, and it really hit home then, just simply playing through to experience and get through.
Back as far as the Sandford Junction and come up the hard shoulder like radio signals from another star. It took 21 minutes for them to arrive. I watched Paul time it to the second on his watch.
Sandford Junction. He mentioned this Paul as well before. So as I was saying, it really struck me just how this game can draw you in. I was simply playing through in order to attempt to get to this point. Yet the music and the sheer loneliness of the island and the voiceovers just drew me straight back into the story, and it had me asking similar questions to the ones I would have asked myself at the beginning, but also other questions. So we find ourselves now here in a rather wide open cave. I believe we need to drop down here. Doesn't seem to be anything down here that I can see, so we might as well surface and keep going. Okay, and we're back now. We just took a quick break to resolve that frame skip issue. Okay, so we seem to find ourselves slightly higher up in this area, and we can now kind of scoot around and continue moving along. It's a good thing this guy has very sure footing, that's for sure. Yeah. This looks like blood, but I think it may just be lighting from the candle. Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, let's keep going. I imagine we will eventually reach a point where we can see the part of the cave that was visible earlier on, before we actually entered the caves. So we're crawling through now. Wow.
I am traveling through my own body, following the line of infection from the shattered femur towards the heart. I swallow fistfuls of painkillers to stay lucid. In my delirium, I see the twin lights of the moon and the Ariel shining to me through the rocks.
This is quite beautiful. What's that? Looks like a piece of log or something. So, I wonder where I'm supposed to go here. I assume I continue upwards and onwards towards the Ariel, but it also looks like I can head down this way, and this seems to be some... Well, this is all quartz, some sort of crystal that is giving off the light here. And there's more of that chemical formula. So I wonder if there is anything of interest here. Yeah, it seems to have brought us to a dead end, unfortunately. And that's what appears to be some sort of electrical diagram. Okay. Well, I guess we head back this way, so. It is quite beautiful. These are eggs. And here's a photograph. This... I can't tell if that is an X-ray or something. That is very definitely a photograph of someone. There's an ultrasound. Okay, well, it seems exploring and investigating does pay off, but it only seems to pay off in more cryptic hints. This entire experience seems to be full of misshapen puzzle pieces that only barely hint at the shape of the whole. So I guess we continue ever onward, ever upward, for the time being. More paint. More drawings. I imagine this game could only be improved by using something like the Oculus Rift. The the whole game seems to be geared around walking around and exploring and looking and investigating, and seems the Oculus Rift would be perfect for this kind of thing. I imagine somebody has already done it, and I just simply haven't seen the YouTube video for it yet.
To me, from the summit down to this well, into the dark waters where the small flowers creep for the sun. Headlights are reflected in your retinas, moonlit in the shadow of the crematorium chimney.
Crematorium? Okay, I didn't expect that there would be this much water down here. I wonder, is that the sinkhole that we were seeing from above ground earlier on in the first part? Behold Damascus taken. Behold Damascus is taken. Wow, that is a lot of diagrams and stuff. Acts. EP02. Damascus. So, chemical symbols, Bible quotations, and electric diagrams. This is very strange. Away from being a city. And it shall be I can't read that. A fungus head? A ruinous heap of fungus head. Seriously? Wow. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. Okay. Oh. These are interesting. So as I say, the rather unrealistic bioluminescence here gives us obviously all the light that we need in order to see what's going on in these otherwise dark caves. Okay, looks like we'll be doing a little bit of swimming to continue on our path. And here we go. Come up for air. A fungus head. Seriously? I thought it said a fungus head. Wow. Great, another bloody hole we have to jump into. Acts 22. Oh, wow. What the hell? What the hell? Okay, so now we're underwater on the M5. What the hell is going on here? we find ourselves back in the cave. That was a very strange experience. So, obviously that gives us more hints about the car crash, but it was underwater, which is obviously very strange. They were very old style cars. It didn't really... Like most things in this experience, it just seemed to add more questions than it seemed to give answers. Okay, so now we're on to the fourth and final chapter, it seems. So there seems to be some sort of a camp and supplies set up here.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong.
Okay, so there's the transmitter. Guess we just keep pushing forward. Following the lights. Photos of the car crash.
Dear Esther, I find each step harder and heavier. I drag Donnelly's corpse on my back across these rocks, and all I hear are his whispers of guilt, his reminders, his burnt letters, his neatly folded clothes. He tells me I was not drunk at all.
Medical supplies, painkillers, defibrillator. Who is that? Is that? Am I dreaming? That appears to be a person. This game grows stranger and stranger. So the candles are obviously lighting my way. And we have various bits and pieces Broken bits of a car. Symbols of the accident, but...
There were chemical stains on the tarmac. The leak of air conditioning, brake fluid and petrol. He kept sniffing at his fingers as he sat by the roadside, waiting as if he couldn't quite understand or recognize their smell. He said he'd been traveling back from a sales conference in Exeter. He'd stopped for farewell drinks earlier, but had kept a careful eye on his intake. You could hear the sirens above the idling traffic.
A light from heaven shone around him. A light from heaven shone around him. So, the previous piece of monologue that we heard, where he sounded quite fraught and distressed, from the wording it seemed as if he might have been, as in our speaker, it seemed as if he might have been the one who was trying to protest that he had not been drunk.
I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Okay, well, looks like we're getting close to our goal. On a sudden, a light from heaven shone around him, and he fell to the ground. More eggs. Okay, so let's make our ascent.
A sound of torn metal, teeth running over the edge of the rocks, a moon that casts a signal as I lay pinned beside you, the ticking of the cooling engine, and the calling from a great height, all my mind as a bypass.
What? What was once cryptic is now becoming completely indecipherable. Well, it's either a statue or it is indeed a figure, a person.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Where has the figure disappeared to? There was a man here. That was not a dream. And yet he is not here. And as he was proceeding on his journey, and was come near to Damascus.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did he eat nor drink.
Bent back like a nail, like a hangnail, like a drowning man clung onto the wheel, drunk and spiraled, washed onto the lost shore under a moon as fractured as a shattered wing. We cleave, we are flight and suspended, these wretched painkillers, forming constant. I will take flight, I will take flight.
And it came to pass that as I made my journey... Okay, I'm going to need to get closer to see that. How... It looks like there's more painted there. How the hell did... How is that possible? And it came to pass that as I made my journey, and was come to something onto Damascus. Oh, I don't know, I can't read that. Okay, I'm just going to stop trying to read that because it's not working out. I could not see.
A gull perched on a spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking. Old bread and gull bones. Old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink. Old Esther walking with our children. Old Paul as ever. Old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
I came into Damascus. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the story to properly understand the references and significance of Damascus.
In my passing, I will send news to each and every star.
In his passing?
Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jacobson? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We have always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jacobson flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
What the hell? At this point, I truly don't know what to say.
Come back.
This is one of those experiences that just has your mind roiling in confusion and mountains of questions that really only lead to other questions. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dear Esther. This game was based on a mod that was made for the Source engine, I believe. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. But it was initially based on a mod, and the mod ended exactly the same way. It just leaves you with this darkness, giving you an opportunity to contemplate everything that you've experienced. So I'm not going to, at this point, I'm not going to try and shape or inform your own impressions about this experience. If you've come with me through part 1 and part 2, then obviously you will have experienced the same set of events and atmosphere and tone and story that I have experienced, and you'll draw your own conclusions from that. I highly recommend that you, if you're interested, if you're still raging, going, what the hell is going on, I highly recommend that you Google it and maybe discuss it with other people on the internet. It's the only thing I can recommend. I don't think it's going to bring you any more answers. I think, like everything to do with this, the more questions you ask, the more questions you're presented with. And I think therein lies the beauty of this. So thanks for coming along on the ride, guys. This has been an extended episode, an extended part 2. So thank you very much for your patience and for coming along. Like, comment and subscribe if you did so. And we will see you again for the next interesting adventure. Thanks very much, and take care. And it's just us and the stars.